Hello, thank you for stopping by. My name is Becky and this is BecxReadz, and today I have a recommendation collab for you. I put up a poll of what kind of recommendations you guys would want in January, and the majority of you chose found family recommendations. So that is what I am here to give to you today, and joining me is Kristin at Kristin Craves Books. So I will have her video linked in the description box, so go check out what found family recommendations she has for you today as well. Found family is one of my favorite tropes ever. I love seeing people create their own families and find people who love and accept them that aren't people they're related to. And I am quite loose with my found families when it comes to this. If there's two people who aren't related and they somehow become family, I consider it found family. So let's get started. I have a mixture of YA, adult, fantasy, and romance. So you're sure to find something here. My first recommendation is going to be an adult contemporary speculative fiction, and that is The Memory Collectors by Kim Neville. In this, we follow a young woman named Ev who has this ability to sense the emotions that people have put into objects. She lives a very minimalistic lifestyle, and she only surrounds herself with new things that have no memories at all. Meanwhile, Harriet is a hoarder, and she is attracted to objects that have strong emotions in them. So she's been like hoarding all of these objects, and the emotions that are in these objects are so strong that they're starting to seep out of the objects and infect the people that are living around her. So when she meets Ev, she propositions her that she will pay her to help her go through her collection of stuff and create a museum of objects that have very profound and strong emotions and get rid of the stuff that really doesn't. And Ev needs the money, so she agrees to do this, but she can only be around these objects for so long before they start making her sick, and so it takes her a really long time to go through everything that Harriet has hoarded. And in doing so, she comes across some objects that have some very dark and sinister emotions attached to them. But in helping Harriet do this, they become each other's families, and they help each other live their lives and become the best versions of themselves, all while having these two sort of opposing emotional abilities when it comes to objects. I loved seeing the emotions and the events that led to certain objects having such strong memories tied to them. This book takes on like a thriller aspect at one point, and I liked the relationship between Harriet and Ev. It was very like grandmotherly, granddaughterly, and they just came together and they formed this very beautiful family of their own. Up next is an adult fantasy, and that is The Bone Maker by Sarah Beth Durst. In this, we are following Kreia. Her husband has been dead for a while. He died fighting in this war against this very corrupt magician who was using animal bones to raise an inhuman army to attack their country. And Kreia is desperate to get her husband back, so she is trying to resurrect him from the dead using human bones, which is a very illegal magic. When she's trying to do this, she ends up sort of reconnecting with the other warriors that were in the war with her and her husband, and she somehow convinces them to help her in this task. In doing so, they find out that this corrupt magician who they thought they had killed, he isn't quite dead. So they sort of have to reestablish their army and fight this guy one more time and really make sure that he's dead. So the found family in here is this band of warriors that Kreia and her husband were a part of. They each went off, they did their own things, they had their own families, they got new jobs and stuff like that. So it's really a bringing the band back together type of story. Their friendship, the way that they treat one another with such respect, they tell each other when they're doing things wrong. They really have such a strong friendship and found family vibe that it was one of my favorite things in this story. And this was just such a really fun and unique adult fantasy. My next recommendation is a YA historical fantasy. It's more on the upper YA, and that is The Gilded Wolves series by Roshani Chokshi. This is set in 1889 Paris, and we follow this man named Severo who is trying to get his group of friends to help him track down a magical artifact that will reinstate his magical inheritance. And each of the people in his friend group have very unique abilities and strengths that they all use in order to help him do this. One of his friends is really great with chemistry, another is really great with botany, Another is really great with like literature and history and stuff like that. And a couple more, I forget what their like specialty is, but he has this whole band of people who he's getting to help him do this. And they in themselves are an amazing found family. One of my favorite found families ever. This has such a great diverse cast of characters. I loved all of their backgrounds and how they are the way they are and why they're good at the things they're good at. They all had such unique personalities, and I loved every single perspective within this book because this series does have multiple perspectives from each of the characters. So if you're looking for a great series with great found family representation, great diverse cast of characters, great historical elements woven in, and just a slight dash of fantasy and magic, highly recommend this series. My next recommendation is another young adult historical with just like a small, like the smallest dash of magical realism you will ever read in a book. Like the smallest dash. And that is the Gold Seer series by Ray Carson, the first book being Walk on Earth, a Stranger. In this, we follow a young woman named Lee who has this ability to sense gold within the earth. And when her family is murdered because somebody wants to take Lee and use her for her abilities, she is left all alone. She sets out on this like Oregon Trail adventure to California during the gold rush where she knows she can make a life for herself and provide for herself because she doesn't have any family left. And on this journey, she ends up surrounding herself with a bunch of other people who are also trying to reach California in the hopes of a better life. And she creates these strong bonds with the people who she encounters along the way and sort of builds her own found family of, again, a very diverse group of people. We have characters in here from all age ranges, all ethnicities, all like religious backgrounds, and it was so cool to see. This is set in one of my favorite time periods to read about, which is the Gold Rush era. Lee herself is a very smart young woman, and this has another one of my favorite tropes as well, which is friends to lovers. It has just a little bit of romance in it, which I absolutely loved, but I loved this whole adventure, and I thought that little itty bit of fantastical of her being able to sense gold within the earth just added enough whimsy to a historical fiction for my enjoyment to skyrocket. My next recommendation is an adult seafaring piratey fantasy romance, and that is Sea of Roses by Opal Rain. In this, we are following Alistair, who is a feared pirate captain with a ship that nobody can outsail, until Rosetta enters the picture and she sneakily steals his ship from him and then leaves him stranded. So she has to work really hard to convince his crew that she is somebody worth sailing under. And she does this because her own crew is very loyal to her and they will do anything to protect their ship captain. This has a really fun found family aspect because, like I said, her crew is very loyal to her. She has spent years building up their loyalty. This is also a pretty spicy fantasy romance with some hate to love as well. So if any of that intrigues you, you should definitely check out this series. One of the newer books that I read that falls into the found family trope is Krampus and the Crone by Honey Phillips. I just read this in December. It was actually in my Christmas smut reading vlog, which I will have that link down below. But this was such a cute found family. In this, we are following this commander. His name is Commander Krampusarian, so I'm just going to call him Krampus. He is an alien whose ship was messed with, so he crash lands on this planet where there are human inhabitants, but it's not Earth. It's a different planet that humans have settled on. And there he takes an interest in this old crone who visits the local village and helps the people there. But he ends up finding out that she's not an old crone after all. She's just using a disguise so that way she doesn't attract the attention of the horny townspeople. She's actually this very beautiful young witch. And when something happens, he ends up saving her and he ends up stealing these two young children, this brother and this sister, from the local village because they're not living the best life. And he offers them like love and attention and stability and safety. And this whole story, he is just constructing his own family. And it was just so stinking cute the way he sort of stole all of these people to be his own family because they don't have anybody else in their life. And so he's just like, come, be mine. you are into alien romances and you're looking for some cute found family, here you go. My next recommendation is another adult fantasy romance, one of my favorite fantasy romance series, and that is the Dark Magi series by Kel Carpenter. So in this, we follow Quinn, who is rescued from slavery by Lazarus, who is a soul eater. He is a dark magi. And he wants Quinn to be his vassal, and he wants to use her unique skills to help him reclaim his throne. The only problem is Quinn isn't sure how to use her unique skills because she was never trained to. So throughout this entire series, we see Lazarus and his band of people travel across this country, and they're trying to find the people who will be able to help Quinn bring forth her abilities. And he is very good at convincing people to help him in his mission. And the people that he convinces to help him are very loyal to him. I love this found family so much. It was so diverse. Again, it had people from different age ranges, different backgrounds. The way that he treats everybody in his family with respect, and they all respect him, it was just so wonderful to see. This is a very expansive fantasy series. It's 5 books. A slow burn romance between Quinn and Lazarus. It really takes its time to develop, and it does venture into some very dark territory, and it's one that I need more people to read because this is such an amazing fantasy romance. My next 2 recommendations are adult cozy fantasies, and they are by the same author, and that is TJ Klune. So we have The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door. TJ Klune writes found family so amazingly well. So in The House in the Cerulean Sea, I'm sure everybody knows what this book is about, but we follow Linus, who is this very rule-following, straight-laced man who is sent to this orphanage to see if they are following the rules and if it should still stay open, because this orphanage houses what is deemed the most dangerous children out there. And when he gets there, he finds this found family that he never expected to fall in love with, from the kids to their foster dad. It is one of the sweetest found families I have ever seen. These children were so freaking adorable. I just wanted to hug them and adopt them all. The relationship he has with Arthur is just so sweet and heartwarming as well. So if you haven't read this yet, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You really need to. And then in Under the Whispering Door, we meet Wallace, who was a very shitty person in his life. He did not treat people the best. He did not care about his relationships. So when he dies and the Grim Reaper shows up, the Grim Reaper takes him to this little tea shop sort of in between life and death. And there he meets Hugo, who is the owner of this tea shop. And Hugo really teaches Wallace the meaning of what is important in life and what he did wrong in his life and how to sort of circumvent that. And in doing so, they form a relationship. He forms a relationship with the other patrons, ghosts pretty much, that are residing within this tea shop as well. And this found family was so quirky, and I loved all of the characters and seeing like what their histories were when they were alive versus what they are now. And the relationship between Wallace and Hugo, once again, was so cozy, so heartwarming, and I absolutely loved this one as well. I didn't love this one nearly as much as The House in the Cerulean Sea, but this one just appealed to me on a totally different level. My next recommendation is an adult sci-fi, and that is Vicious by V. Schwab. In this, we are following Victor and Eli, who were brilliant best friends in college, and together they discovered this ability to access extraordinary powers within people through near-death experiences. And now they're trying to kill one another. And when Victor is recently released from prison, he sets out on this mission to find Eli, who was the one who put him in prison to begin with, and kill him. So he's rounding up these group of individuals who have also experienced near-death experiences and have extraordinary abilities to try and help him on this mission, because Eli is seen as the villain in this story, and so he's trying to take care of him. This found family is so macabre, so morbid. I loved it. I loved that the characters in here are all morally gray. I loved the question of who really is the villain within the story, Victor or Eli. I loved that this was from the male perspective, and I loved that this had older characters in it. And it just had a great cast of characters. I did read the second book in this series, and I didn't love it as much because it's following almost a whole new group of people, but it still had that found family atmosphere to it. So if you're looking for some older characters, some morally gray characters that have a found family, this is a series that you should check out. And my last recommendations for found family are adult fantasy romance, very popular, so you're probably not going to be surprised to see this on here, but that is the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. So we see the found family more in A Court of Mist and Fury, book 2, on into A Court of Silver Flames than we do in the first book. But this is about Feyre, who is a human who ends up killing a fae and being taken to the Fae realm, where she ends up falling in love and shit happens, and she ends up having to help the Fae in wars. So I'm sure everybody's read this series, so I don't know why I'm being so vague, but the Inner Circle and the Valkyries are 2 of my favorite found family ever. The way that these characters love one another, support one another, is so freaking amazing. And especially the Valkyries, because we see like how Nesta's own family within the series, she really feels like an outcast within her own family. So for her to find her own found family within the Valkyries in A Court of Silver Flames was spectacular. So let me know down in the comments, what is a book that you love that has the found family trope in it? I'm always looking for more recommendations. But if you don't want to comment that, but would like to let me know that you made it to the end of this video, could you leave me the little group of people emoji? And be sure to go check out what books Kristin has to recommend for you. And thank you, Kristin, for wanting to do this recommendation collab with me. With that, thank you so much for watching. And until my next video, go read a book with found family in it. Bye!